pecking at fresh grain and laying eggs at their whim, while the family cow wanders near the hen house, the silver bell tied around her neck, clanging lazily. Farming has changed. Okay? Dramatically. Okay? Most of today's farms absolutely no resemblance to this myth. Okay? In order to maximize profits and streamline production, most of today's meat and poultry originate in factory-style farms, enormous warehouses crammed with thousands, sometimes tens of thousands of turkeys, chickens, cows, pigs, or other animals. Today, only 99% of all animals slaughtered for consumption in the United States are raised in concentrated animal feeding operations. Are raised. They call them CAFOs, that strive to maximize efficiency by raising the largest number of animals in the shortest period of time. For example, it once took 4 to 5 years for a calf to grow to the size required for slaughter. This represents substantial overhead costs to the factory farmer. Today, the time to market for a calf is 14 to 16 months. For CAFO farmers, time really is money. The United States is a meat-eating society. U.S. consumers eat approximately 265 pounds of meat per person per year. Okay? Oh, gosh. All right, let me read some of these stats for y'all, okay? Equates to more than 1 million animals slaughtered every hour. If the total number of animals on land and sea were counted, there are approximately 80 billion animals killed and eaten annually. All right? The United States has 5% of the world's population, but accounts for approximately 20% of the animals killed worldwide for food. There are 835 federally inspected livestock slaughter plants and 370 poultry slaughter plants in the United States. All right, let me read some of this. Y'all ain't gonna like it, okay? All righty, be prepared, okay? To meet the demand for meat in the United States, the factory farming industry strives for the shortest time to market possible. Most commercially available forms of meat, pork, poultry come from animals that have been fed hormones and sex steroids to increase milk production or to support fast weight gain. While these hormones have been banned in the European Union, Canada, and other countries, over 67% of all beef cattle in the United States are treated with artificial growth hormones, such as RBGH, which I spoke of before. That is a synthetic hormone version of the natural bovine somatotropin, a hormone naturally produced by the cow's pituitary glands. Milk from cows injected with RBGH has a higher level of another hormone called insulin growth. The United States is the only developed nation that permits the use of RBGH for increasing milk production in dairy cows. The average industry farmed cow today produces 100 pounds of milk every day, approximately 12 gallons, 10 times what she would produce naturally. This stress often leads to other infections and use of antibiotics. In addition, cows naturally live 20 or more years, but most factory-bred cows can barely walk by their 4th birthday because of the unnaturally fast weight they gain in the stress of milk production from that hormone they injected. Okay, these hormones stress the animal, and there is reason to believe they may contribute to significant health issues in humans. Okay, IGF-1 is involved in oncogenesis and tumor progression, invasion, and metastasis. Both been linked to the development of certain tumors. such as breast, prostate, colorectal, lung, pancreatic, head and neck, renal, ovarian, endometrial, and other cancers. Other health implications include the possible association between elevated levels of IGF-1 in humans and the increase of twin births in the last 30 years. Bet you didn't know that. You got to think about it. If you was thinking you have like twin births and you trying to think back to, do we have twins running out fat? You have to consider and think about it. Is it due to the IGF-1 that's in humans? And the increase in twin births from that? Okay. Antibiotics given to conventionally raised animals, especially cattle and poultry, increase antibiotic resistance in humans. Concern about the growing level of drug-resistant bacteria has led to the banning of subtherapeutic uses of antibiotics in meats and animals in many countries in the European Union and Canada. In the United States, however, such use is still legal. Y'all better be glad we have that guy Kennedy that's in there looking at all this food and additives and all these things that's contributing to chronic diseases. That's what he's looking at, y'all. We ain't never had nobody in there that want to be concerned about the chronic diseases that's out of control in the United States and the world, as a matter of fact. All this stuff. The World Health Organization has expressed concern about antibiotic resistance and suggests curbing the use of antibiotics in humans used for food. To date, little has changed. Okay. Other additives, either in food fed to animals or administered directly to the animals, can result in serious health issues for humans. For example, approximately 70% of broiler, the stuff they do to chickens, y'all listen. For example, approximately 70% of broiler chickens in the United States are fed arsenic to fatten them and give the birds their pink hue. Arsenic. Y'all listening? Arsenic. By adding arsenic to their food, to their feed, farmers can raise a hatchling and send it to slaughter in only 6 weeks. And this practice is legal. The average person ingests 8.1 micrograms of arsenic a day from chickens. And chronic exposure, 10 to 40 micrograms a day, is associated with an increased risk of skin, bladder, and respiratory cancers. In addition, broiler chickens have such difficulty supporting their abnormally large body weight that they spend almost 90% of their lives lying down in their own waste. This causes ammonia burns on their undersides, leaving their skin bare and raw. Broiler chickens are the only livestock that live in chronic pain for the latter half of their lives because of selective breeding that severely damages their joints. You understand? Y'all listening to me? I'm probably going to wind up coming up with some vegetarians in a little while. I'm serious, y'all. This is crazy. Listen to this stuff. I wanted to give you an overview of what spiritual nutrition is before I got into some of these stats here, these numbers here. Beef cattle have the ability to digest low-cost feedstuffs that are not usable by other livestock species. One example of this is poultry litter. Poultry litter, manure from poultry farms, often used as a fertilizer, is often fed to beef cattle as a way of supplying a low-cost protein feed to the cattle. In addition to chicken manure, poultry litter may contain dead chickens, feathers, spilled feed, metal, glass rocks, heavy metals such as arsenic, ash, soil, and animal carcasses. When used as a fertilizer, it can enter the watershed and contaminate waterways. While these foreign objects should be removed and the litter processed appropriately via heating, spraying with arsenic acid, or deep stacking to reduce pathogens present in the litter, these processes may not occur correctly. Exposure to the litter, either as a fertilizer or through the ingestion of cattle that have been fed the litter, can result in serious fungal and bacterial infections for humans and other animals. Pathogens such as salmonella, typhoid, whatever, with all this stuff be present in poultry litter. Poultry litter has also been linked to bovine spongiform, its BSE or mad cow disease. There are currently no federal regulations governing the use of poultry litter as a feed staff. You hear me? In addition to concerns about unhealthy additives in the current food chain, conscious eating from a spiritual perspective involves an awareness of how the food on a plate was raised and processed. This necessitates a closer examination and understanding of the conditions of which animals are processed and the ways in which workers process the meat. Y'all, okay, now listen to this, okay? It's so sad. The conditions in which many commercially raised animals are kept prior to slaughter is akin to torture. Y'all, these are all, look, everything I'm reading has been researched, has been written by scholars and, all kind of universities and things like that, okay? Some have described it as a place of blood, pain, and death. Y'all ain't gonna be eating up much more meat after I finish with you. You're not. It's so sad, y'all. It's so sad. You're gonna be giving up some meat, okay? Yeah, you are. Listen to this. If you're still with me, stay with me now. Some have described it as a place of blood, pain, and death, which is so sad. The animals that enter slaughterhouses have typically been born and raised indoors without access to sunlight or fresh air. And they often face painful injuries during their journey to slaughterhouses, such as broken legs or trampling injuries without treatment in the trucks which transport them. Once they enter the slaughterhouse, the frantic pace of production discourages any workers from taking the necessary care to ensure the animals do not suffer gruesome deaths. Many of the animals can vocalize, and I'm getting ready to cry. Oh, God, she's a great cry. Y'all know I'm an empath. I already read this stuff. Reading to y'all make me when I'm great cry. Many of the animals can vocalize or call to each other. These calls indicate several emotions such as excitement, frustration, fear, interest, pleasure, or stress. Okay? Now, these are all studies. All the references are all here. Okay? I just don't read those to y'all. Oh, Jesus, listen to this. The following are some examples of commonplace occurrences in the U.S. factory farming and slaughterhouses. Hens exploited for egg production are commonly packed in battery cages so tightly that they cannot move or flap their wings. The cages typically are 61 square inches, about 8 inches by 8 inches. Over 300 million hens are raised in this way in the United States every year. Large poultry farms, often called grower houses, confine up to 20,000 birds in windowless rooms with temperatures controlled through forced ventilation and sparse amount of litter floors. Rows of feeders and drinkers are provided in stressful conditions. They are unable to nest, bathe, perch, or spread their wings and are expected to lay on average about 260 eggs a year. The wire cages are lined up in rows and stacked in tiers. I have pictures, yo. I just printed it out in black ink only to save my color ink. About 260 eggs a year. The wire cages are lined up in rows and stacked in tiers. When they are chicks, hens, or debeaked, and debeaked, which is a painful process that involves, without anesthesia, severing bone, cartilage, and tissue with a hot knife blade so they don't fight or peck their cage mate because of overcrowding or waste food from flickering it around. They're debeaked, y'all. In the United States, approximately 260 million male chicks who serve no purpose since they cannot lay eggs and are of different strain of meat from meat chickens. They are ground up alive, gassed, or thrown into dumpsters. They're male chickens. They have no use. And that's what they do to them. They ground them up alive, they gas them, or throw them in dumpsters. Chickens are not considered animals in the Humane Methods of Slaughter Act, and thus no law dictates their treatment at the end of their lives. Most farms opt not to slaughter the hens on site, so they are often transported to slaughterhouses. If they survive the long journey in overheated trucks, they are killed, often fully conscious, y'all. They are usually stunned through the use of an electric water bath, but many survive this only to be conscious when their throats are slit. If they are not properly stunned, they often miss the blade meant for their throats and are boiled alive. Should I continue? While alternatives to these practices exist, the poultry industry is hesitant to adopt any of them. Okay? Y'all, I'm gonna share with you what the workers endure, okay? Calves raised for veal are usually separated from their mothers and immediately after birth and confined for the duration of their short lives, usually 4 to 5 months. That's veal, y'all. That's the calves used for veal. They separate them from their mom. They only live 4 to 5 months because they want to cut the meat up for your veal. Okay? To crates measuring 2 feet wide. The size of the crate restricts the movement of the cows to either lie down or stand, and they often stand in their own excrement because any bedding or straw could be eaten and discolor their meat. The cows cannot turn around or stretch their limbs. Their necks are chained, so they cannot fully move their heads. Males are castrated without pain medication. Calves raised to become veal are purposely fed an all-liquid milk substitute, which is deficient in iron and fiber, in order to produce anemia that results in the pale-colored flesh typical of veal. They are unable to walk to slaughter because their muscles are severely underdeveloped. Some are killed at just a few days of age to be sold as low-grade Bob veal for products like TV dinners. To keep their production and line moving, quite often uncooperative animals are beaten. They have prods poked in their faces and up their rectums. They have bones broken and eyeballs popped out. Some are so sick from the stress of the dairy industry, they are unable to walk or even stand, and are called downed cows. Downed cows are routinely dragged or pushed with bulldozers in an attempt to move them to slaughter. Dairy cows are not given food, water, or protection during this process. Okay, let me finish. In the summertime, when it's 95 degrees, they're transporting cattle from 12 to 1,500 miles away on a trailer with 40 to 45 head crammed in there, and some collapse from heat exhaustion. This past winter, we had minus 50-degree weather with the wind chill, and that trailer is going 50 miles an hour. The animals are urinating and defecating right in the trailers. And after a while, it's going to freeze, and their hooves are right in it. If they go down, well, you can imagine lying in there for 10 hours on a trip. If they don't die on the way to the slaughterhouse from exposure or traffic accidents, they are often shot in the head with a captive bolt gun and hung up by one leg while their throats are cut, and they are then skinned and gutted. Did you guys know this was going on in the food industry? For that beef or whatever that's on your plate that you making for dinner and you buying at the supermarket, there's a way to get humanely treated animal meat on your plate. There are things to look for and things to do to ensure that you are getting a meat that's where the animals are being treated properly. All right. Approximately 100 million pigs are raised and slaughtered in the U.S. every year, capable of learning complex tasks. You know, pigs are very, very smart, right? They're smart. So approximately 100 million pigs are raised and slaughtered in the U.S. every year, capable of learning complex tasks. They're smart. Perceiving time and anticipating future events, pigs can recognize up to 30 other pigs, and they live in large social groups, often sleeping huddled together. In factory farms, piglets are subjected to painful mutilations without anesthesia or pain relievers. Notches are taken out of their ears for identification, and their tails are cut off to minimize tail biting, a stress reaction to a deprived factory environment. So the pigs resort to tail biting or tail sucking, which is a normal behavior. 15% of piglets die by 3 weeks of age. Those who survive are taken away from their mothers and crowded into meat-barred and concrete-floored pens and giant warehouses. When they reach 6 months of age or 250 pounds, they are slaughtered. Now we know meat is made for consumption. You know, even when you go back and you look at and you read the Bible and you see what was done in biblical days and everything, you guys, but they didn't do this. They didn't. Even hunters, you have watched some TV shows and you've seen hunters when they shot a deer for consumption, how they would go. They would shoot a deer in a certain way, the less painful way that bullet would enter that deer or arrow, whatever they use. And then they go and they pray and they thank the animal for their meat and their food. And it's done humanely. If that's a word. It's done in a conscious, spiritual way. That is what we mean by spiritual nutrition.